Yo, what's up guys, it's me, Valenweeb here back with part 5 for What If Subaru was a Shadow Dragon Slayer. If you guys are new to the series and have not seen it before, make sure to go top upper right hand corner. I'll have kindly linked a playlist for you to go and check out all 4 of the prior parts so you can get caught up with this dark story of a Shadow Dragon Slayer, that being Subaru. And well, for the rest of you who have already been caught up, let's continue then, shall we? Subaru and Rom would be now in a 2v2 fight against Elsa and Melee, the 2 assassins that someone had hired to attack the Roswaal estate. We have no idea who this is or why they're attacking the Emillia camp, but currently they're in a forest fighting over the fate of Arlem village, and thus the fate of the Mathers domain. Thus the battle would begin. Elsa, of course, having superhuman speed, strength, and regeneration, having been shown in all of the ReZero content so far, shown in the anime at least, how even strong attacks from things like Maw Beasts can't keep her down. It's almost like she has some sort of cloning-like ability with how fast she can recover from damage, having been able to even fight with the person known as Reinhardt the Sword Saint for quite a long period of time. Of course, Elsa's stats are basically nothing to Subaru. Subaru having far superior strength equivalent to that of a dragon. The dragon being the symbol of strength, power, and spirit that combined makes up the kingdom of Lagunica, the Dragon Kingdom, ironically enough being the place where Subaru was summoned. Anyway, the battle begins, Subaru saying he'll take Elsa, and Rom thus going after Melee. Melee really being only a small girl, her real strengths come from her control over Maw Beasts, being a shaman. It's something that's somewhat of a rare ability in the world of ReZero, and makes her a threat. The battle beginning. Subaru would immediately begin by pushing off his right foot, giving him a head start, to say. And as this a massive push would actually cause the ground to crack, Subaru taking advantage of this speed to get as close as he can to Elsa and close that distance before she can go after Ram. And also, just a quick thing I should add here because some people in the comments were confused. I'm talking about Rom, the pink-haired one, not the blue-haired one that everyone talks about that doesn't exist or something in the memes. So no, not Rom. I'm not pronouncing it wrong. I mean Rom. Okay? Alright, back to the fight. Subaru has now effectively closed the distance between himself and Elsa. Elsa trying to kill and attack Rom being her best strategy so far, and the first time she has ever managed to injure Subaru in any way. Subaru having blood now sweeping down his hand from the cut he had caught earlier, that being Elsa's blade. Elsa knows that physically Subaru has no weaknesses, that being that if she attacks him with her knife or any physical object, Subaru will simply phase through it and turn to darkness. That's why she's going after Rom as her main strategy, to force Subaru to be able to take the strikes. Subaru of course would know this. Subaru now moving in between himself, Elsa, and Rom. Rom going on the offensive against Melee, using a wind spell. Subaru would cover his fist with shadows. Shadow Dragon Claw! Subaru would punch forward with shadows coating his fist. The shadows pulsating into Elsa, sending her body ricocheting backwards further away from Rom and Subaru. Subaru would then once again step with his right foot, pushing off the ground faster as he uses his speed as a Shadow Dragon Slayer, transforming into shadows and moving at the speed of a shadow. Reappearing behind Elsa as he slashes with his hand with a blade made out of midnight, carving at Elsa's neck. Elsa would now block this with her own blade, the shadows trying to bend around the knife. She would then cut the tree behind her with her other hand, ripping through it and forcing Subaru to get out of its shadow. Subaru physically remanifesting. I didn't think it was going to be that easy, Subaru would say. Shadow Dragon! Roar. Subaru would open his mouth, charging darkness and mana into it as a huge wave of shadow would come pouring from Subaru as it rams into Elsa, causing Elsa to dig her feet and grit her teeth, holding her arms up to try and block the blow. The ground beneath Elsa's feet being turned to dirt. Elsa would slip as she falls over, Subaru taking this advantage. Of course, this was planned. Elsa would take this opportunity to slash upwards at Subaru, who would actually get cut, having been too quick on the draw. Subaru's chin getting sliced, Subaru falling backwards onto the ground before doing a flip and pulling himself back up to his feet, deciding to try and stick to more ranged attacks. Meanwhile, Rama would be having her own difficulties fighting Melee. Melee's small size and agility combined with her controlling mob beasts, even though most of them had been wiped out by Subaru by now, they were still hard to deal with, especially when she had that alpha dog who was able to control the ground and earth beneath it. Using this ability to her advantage to give Ram an even footing. She'd be using wind spells to slice up and chop the dogs, causing these mob beasts to slowly be getting withered down. An additional thing that Ram would have to worry about is Rem. Rem being unconscious after her control the demon ability had gone out of her hands, and she had to be taken out by Subaru. Since Rem was unconscious behind her, Ram had to be extra careful to make sure that she did not allow any beasts or anything to attack her sister while she was unconscious and unable to defend herself. This being something that Subaru also has to keep mind of when fighting Elsa. After both of them would be fighting off their respective enemies for a while longer, this would be eventually when Emillia would come down to the village after seeing and hearing the commotion. Emillia would come down from the mansion, walking towards the village wondering where Ram, Rem, and Subaru might have gone. The three of them having seemingly disappeared from the premises a while ago and it being late. While Emillia approaches the village, she would notice that the crystals that she had put out to protect the village's boundaries from mob beasts that had been filled with mana had been removed, realizing that someone had tampered with them. This causing unease within Emillia. Emillia running to hurry to find where Subaru could have been. Eventually running to the village to find the villagers all hiding in their houses as Subaru and the girls had told them, with them explaining to Emillia what had happened with the mansion's butler and maids. Emillia would head in the direction they had pointed where Subaru had ran off saying he could find their kids earlier, to which Emillia would find Rem unconscious, Subaru and Ram battling these two strangers, and the kids unconscious from the village. Subaru would immediately notice Emillia, telling her to take them and run, saying that if Emillia can get them out of there, then he'd smirk. I can handle this easily. This would be when Emillia would trust Subaru, picking up two of the kids and carrying them out of there, using ice magic to create a shield around them for when she would come back, slowly moving them back from their pile of unconsciousness to the village, with the parents coming out to grab their kids, thanking Emillia and also making it seem as though Emillia was the one who had saved them, building her repertoire and making her seem like a more competent leader, although this was unconsciously something Subaru had done at this point. By the time Emillia had come for Rem, who was the last one there, per Ram and Subaru's request, and had now moved out of the way, carrying her over her shoulder, Emillia would be exhausted, breathing heavily, Subaru holding back Elsa's blade with his hand covered in a shadow-like substance. Ram, when I say the word, get out of here, alright? I'm gonna blow this place to hell. Barisu, what are you... Do it. Just get out of here, now! Ram would retreat, now going after Emillia and Rem. Melee saying she's not going to let her as more mobbies would chase after Ram. Subaru would flick his other hand towards them as shadow knives would be now expelled from his hand, stabbing the beasts as they'd go down. Subaru would then back off of Elsa, who would say she's not going to let him. Too late, Subaru would say, Emillia, put up a shield of ice. Do it now. I've got this. Emillia would create a huge wall of ice telling Subaru to go crazy. Subaru would then release all of his magic power with this final attack to wipe both of them and all the mob beasts out. Shadow Dragon's secret art. Shadow Dragon's howl. Black hole. Subaru would condense his mana into a single point, causing the density of the air to begin to almost shrink into it, as Subaru would create a miniature black hole with all of his magic power, absorbing all of the energy from the surrounding area as he blasted out into a Shadow Dragon howl, creating a huge blast radius that would hit both Elsa, Melee, and all the mob beasts. Elsa would run in front of Melee, tanking the blast. The two of them would get sent sprawling through trees for a whole mile. All of the mob beasts being slaughtered. The trees, the mountains, the rocks, everything in front of Subaru before this power would be erased. As a huge crater, a perfectly spherical hole of dirt would begin crumbling through the area, with the amount of power having knocked Elsa unconscious and Melee having one of her arms blown off from the impact. Subaru would fall to the ground onto his knees before falling unconscious, having expelled all of his magic power that he could into that final attack to finish them off. Emilia's ice wall would fall to the ground, shattering, as she calls out Subaru's name as he falls unconscious. Subaru and Ren would both be out for the count, the villagers thanking Emillia and Subaru for what they had done to save them. Emilia's first order of business being to take Rem and Subaru back to the mansion before she herself would go back to the village to restore the mana within the crystals and protect them from mob beasts in the future. Rem would regain consciousness far before Subaru, who would be using her water magic to heal Subaru. Subaru would heal unordinarily fast, but even though his body had healed, Emillia and Ram were both worried about Subaru, thinking and wondering if he had broken his gate, being the way in this world in order to use magic. Beatrice and Puck would both check Subaru to find that his gate was completely fine. It was strange. If what they had said had come to pass and Subaru had really expelled that much magic power, he should have at least shattered or at least damaged his gate in some way. Even if he was extraordinarily durable, this doesn't make any sense. Roswaal would be even more fascinated with Subaru after realizing this point, looking into his black book that he carries around with him everywhere to pass the time while they were waiting on Subaru's recovery. Subaru would wake up in a couple hours, pulling himself up and saying that he has a raging headache and he's starving. Subaru would lean over and fall out of bed before he begins sucking on the shadow underneath the bed, eating the shadow to regain some of his magic power, burping as he pulls himself up. I have not had to do that in a while, he would say, yawning, saying he might be getting a little rusty. Emillia, Ram, and Rem would hug Subaru, asking if he's okay. Subaru would push them off him, saying he's fine, asking why they look like that, with Ram and Emillia punching Subaru for telling him not to use something like that. He could have killed himself, you know. Subaru would laugh, saying, huh, really? Remembering all the huge attacks he had used back in the mountains, back on Earth with his partner and friend, his parent, Skiadrum. Skiadrum letting off way bigger attacks than that against Subaru. Subaru would laugh at them, saying that that's not even half of what he can really do. Looking down at his fist, thinking about a lesson he had with Skiadrum. Skiadrum having been trying to pull Dragon Force out of Subaru, trying to force him to enter the mode, but no matter what they did, even with him consuming Skiadrum's magic, he just couldn't seem to activate for some reason. And they still had no idea why. Dragon Force, huh? Maybe if I had that today, Rem wouldn't have had to go and do that. Maybe I could have protected everyone. Damn it. I have to get stronger. Far, far stronger. I'll be able to activate the Dragon Force at will someday. I promise you that, Skiadrum. Emillia and the rest wouldn't be completely confident in their analysis of Subaru, deciding that they're going to take Subaru and take him with them to the royal capital for the next stage of the royal selection. Emillia telling Subaru that he'll be coming with her in order to get his gate checked, and that's it. Not expecting him to do anything else. Got it? Subaru would smirk, saying that they're going to the royal capital, then that means I'll get to see that stupid handsome face again, thinking of Reinhardt. Subaru would have knives for teeth, Emillia already being worried. She covers her face, saying he's gonna do something dumb again. Subaru would have a devilish grin on his face, saying that if he runs into that red-haired guy, he's gonna give him a run for his money. That I can say for sure, Subaru would say, nodding. Yep, I'm definitely coming with the royal capital now. Emillia would already be regretting her decision to promise to let Subaru come with. It would be after this, a few days later, when both Felix, along with Wilhelm van Astrea, would accompany each other on a carriage to the Roswaal domain. This, of course, being sent in order to invite Emillia and Camp, who she decides to bring with, to the royal selection's next stage, along with Felix being asked by Emillia to check Subaru. It's upon Felix being one of the top doctors in Lagunica, checking Subaru's body, that he would be shocked. What? Nya? Did that cat girl just say nya? Subaru would say. Subaru being confused. Felix would be having an aneurysm, looking at Emillia and Subaru and being shocked as he tries to explain what he's seeing and feeling. Emillia-sama, it's like he has... It's like Subaru-kyun has 2 gates. What? Emillia would say. Felix would have no idea what he's sensing. It being like there's more than 1 gate within Subaru's body. No, it's like his whole body, in fact, is radiating magic. Like he's some sort of mob beast or something. Just, it was intense. Felix would tell Emillia that he's going to need more time to assess Subaru, saying just to bring Subaru up to the capital next time during the visit so he can take a better exam of Subaru with his tools. Emillia would thank Felix, with Felix walking out of the building being so confused, wondering exactly what it was he had just seen. Subaru would have no idea what had just happened, asking Emillia why that cat girl just left. Cat? You mean Felix? You mean, oh, he's a boy. Wait, what? I mean, okay, if you say so. Somewhere off in another universe, we hear someone called Sukuna screaming in rage and fury. Plus bonus points if you get that reference. Anyway, back to the plot. Subaru would be begrudgingly accompanied by Emillia. It's not like Emillia doesn't like Subaru anymore or anything like that. She actually finds him amazing, seeing how he can direct people and just push his power through everything. It makes Emillia feel like she has more to learn herself, but that's not the point. Subaru is impulsive, and he has the power to back it up, meaning that if he decided to destroy a building or fight someone in the street, Emillia would have to deal with the consequences, which is why she had decided that Subaru would be accompanied by her at all times. Subaru in this timeline isn't exactly a simp for Emillia, so they have this weird sibling-like rivalry going on, with Emillia and Subaru, the two fighting and bickering with each other pretty often. Although they still respected each other for sure. Anyway, the fated day would come and Subaru along with Emillia would leave with Rem for the capital. Rem waving goodbye as she would be staying at Roswaal's side. The three heading into the capital after a long journey and heading towards the royal castle. It's here that actually something different would take place. Subaru would be willingly invited by Emillia to accompany him into the castle. Subaru beforehand already having told Emillia that if she makes him stay outside, then he's just gonna break down the door and make that Van Estrella guy come after him. Emillia, already imagining the chaos, would just simply allow Subaru to come with her, already beginning to get annoyed from Subaru's behavior as she has for the past couple weeks. Look, Subaru, you cannot, absolutely, in any way, embarrass me during this conference. Please, just don't say anything that would make you look stupid, okay? I'm bringing you with me so that I know you don't try and break down the castle door because I know you can. So, don't do anything, okay? Subaru whistling, saying, yeah, I'll do that. Don't worry about it. Emillia would have tears running down her face, shaking Subaru, saying, he really means he will, right? As they enter into the castle gates. A few things here would stay the same, with Emillia being kissed on the hand by Julius. This would be something that makes Subaru uncomfortable, but he doesn't exactly know why. Subaru would walk over to Julius and Emillia, and then whisper to Julius asking where does he think that hand's been. Julius would be caught off guard, falling backwards by Subaru just being himself. Emillia would be looking at Subaru with the eyes. Subaru would whistle, standing back up saying never mind, agreeing to wait for Emillia to enter with Julius, who would, now having regained his composure, be eyeing up this strange-looking butler, as he then escorts Emillia-sama into the room, where she had originally stopped in the original to contact Felix. Subaru, while waiting, would eventually see, of course, what had happened in the original timeline, with this weird girl getting attacked in an alleyway. Subaru being Subaru would step in with the three thugs trying to rob her. Subaru using a regular fist, just punching the three of them and knocking them out, telling them to leave people alone, okay? Go get a real job or something as he walks away. This would be when Priscilla would get annoyed, asking who he is and why he intervened in her battle, saying this could have been easy, and she would have taken them down without a single issue. That his help was completely unnecessarily and useless. Huh? Subaru would say. Well, fine, if you want to deal with them, then you can fight them. Subaru walking back over and pointing at her, asking who she thinks she is, saying he just saved her ass. Priscilla would be, again, offended by this language, asking him who he thinks he is, the two of them getting into a bickering session. Subaru's eye would be twitching by the time Emillia comes out saying, fine, have it your way, I'm done anyway, as he huffs back over to Emillia, who had seen him talking to Priscilla. Emillia would get quiet, asking what that was. Subaru would notice this change in normal temper with him, as he tells Emillia it was just some girl who he had saved from that alleyway. Emillia would turn towards Subaru asking, really? As she was being completely serious. Rem would confirm to Emillia that she had seen what Subaru had done from the carriage, informing Emillia that Subaru had actually been arguing with that lady for the past 20 minutes. Emillia, upon receiving this information, would change her tone again, covering her face as she tries not to laugh, realizing what had happened. Telling Subaru to come along with her, Subaru's still not getting the situation, as Priscilla would have a huffy face as Al would come by, asking what that was all about. The guy who is Priscilla's knight with the helmet on his head. She would say it was just some commoner who was annoying her. Flames now trickling down her hand, saying she'll get her revenge someday. Emillia, Rem, and Subaru would enter into the Great Hall, where all the candidates for the next king of Lagunica would be, Emillia taking her place among them. Subaru would be accompanying Roswaal's group, with Roswaal sitting next to Rem and Ram, his two maids, and Subaru sitting behind him as his butler. Roswaal having been able to easily get to the capital through flight just because he's one of the strongest country's mages, so for him he doesn't need to take that day of travel so long as he's going by himself. Subaru would not say anything, noticing Reinhard Van Astrea and that Julius guy who he had ticked off earlier. Julius noticing Subaru would give him a grin and wave, with Julius being repulsed by this vulgar behavior. As the meeting would begin, the old men who had been running the government until this point because of the lack of a king would begin debating each of the girls who were before them, who had all been candidates according to the selections requirements from the dragon. When it had come to Emilia's time, they began talking about her half-elf status, people whispering among the crowds about her being a half-elf, being the Witch of Sin, the Witch of Envy, Satella. Subaru would sit there for a while with his superhuman hearing all the things being said about Emillia standing there and bearing it. Subaru would tighten his fist, noticing how Julius was just smiling through it, looking at all the knights who weren't doing anything, Emillia just having to take it. Subaru would stand up, yelling out for everyone to shut up, his loud, booming voice echoing throughout the hallway, Emillia looking up, having barely been able to hold back tears so far, whispering and thinking in her head for Subaru to stop it, to not do anything. The old men who were contemplating and talking about this status and status that, Subaru would tighten his fist, gritting his teeth, as he points forward, saying that if anyone in this room really wants to say all those terrible things about some poor girl just because of her race, how she was born, something she couldn't even control, then Subaru would turn around facing the audience who had been whispering these horrible things. Then you can take me on instead, huh? Subaru would go on saying, I'm not some knight or some righteous crap like that. But if you mess with my friends, Subaru would have shadows covering his fists as his eyes would be filled with rage. Then I'll take all of you on. It's at this point Julius would find the opportunity to take Subaru out of the room, saying he'll remove this nuisance. As Julius would attempt to grab Subaru's shoulder, Subaru would grab his hand fast as lightning, holding his wrist with a tight grip, saying that if Julius really wants to fight him, then let's have a proper duel then. Emillia would say nothing, looking at the ground, thinking this is exactly what she thought was going to happen. Subaru would turn, fearing Emilia's tears, as he then tells Emillia not to cry. These assholes aren't worth it. Subaru would walk out of the room with a majority of the knights accompanying him, as they would then head down to the underground dungeon, the place where Subaru and Julius had their original fight. Julius would throw down a sword to Subaru, saying that he's challenged them as honor of knights in order to prove that they are the ones protecting Lagunica, and that he, Julius, will not allow Subaru's vulgar words to continue impeding the royal selection. Subaru would smirk, picking up the sword, gripping the blade of his hand as he then bends it in half, tightening his fist as he smirks at Julius, saying to come at him. Julius would pull out his sword, saying that he's going to regret that, as he tries to strike at Subaru with his own wooden blade. All the knights would be cheering Julius on, telling him to take this stupid kid out. Subaru would merely look up with a glance, looking at Julius as he says he's going to break him. I won't let anyone laugh at my friends. Subaru would catch the sword with a single hand, not even dodging it, as just with one arm he'd be able to block Julius's two-strike blow. Holding the sword with his grip, he'd feel splinters of wood as he breaks it in half with his fist, before throwing a punch at Julius's abdomen. Julius coughing as he gets sent flying back into the wall, all the knights gasping out for air, as the battle between Julius and Subaru would begin. Anyway, if you guys want to see part 6 for what if Subaru was a shadow dragon slayer, make sure to hit the like button, comment below your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, that good stuff. We're almost at 30,000 subscribers, so we just have to put that final push in and we'll be there. Anyway, if you guys want to get this video, the next part coming out, I should say, as soon as possible, make sure to get this video to 300 likes, and I'll immediately begin working on it. If you guys want to see updates for when new videos are coming out, I'll always be posting that on my community tab, and that's it. So, I'll see you guys in the next part. Bye.